If you follow tech, you know that the term unicorn refers to private companies that are worth $1 billion or more. There are about 140 of them in the U.S. Numerous analysts saying their ability to raise money may be coming to an end. Our tech panel is here. The Wall Street Journal's Veronica Dagher, our own David Asman, and Mashable's Christina Warren. So, Christina, if true, how many of these private tech companies will no longer exist, let's say, 2 years from now?
I would say we'll probably see the loss of about a third of them.
Okay, a third down on the ground. Okay.
Definitely.
Wow. So, David, you're saying, wow. Are you surprised?
Not really, because you got a lot of companies that have just taken advantage of the zero interest rates, the billion-dollar valuations with zero earnings. Does that sound familiar? I mean, if that's not
the mortgage crisis,
that's not a bubble,
startups.
well, mortgage crisis or the last .com bubble. I mean, you got to have earnings, and if you don't have earnings, then that $1 billion is artificial. That valuation.
So, Mattermark is a company that collects data, and the founder pointed out that there are more than a few companies basically spending $1, Veronica, to make 20 cents. Yeah. So nobody needs to go even higher than third grade math to know that's not going to work out.
The math doesn't work, right. And investors are sort of putting up with it for now. How long will that happen? When things change, say the greater economy goes south, they could be in for some real surprise. I think so many people are so used to seeing things only go up and not so much go down. When that changes, some people could be really hurting.
Yeah, and the venture capitalists basically can't get paid unless either the company goes public or is purchased, so then there's less incentive for them to keep working on failing projects. Speaking of which, Uber thought that everything was going to go so well in China, just like, hey, this is our second most important market, this is it. As it turns out, the Chinese government has some pretty serious guidelines. If you're a driver, you have to register. If you're a driver, you can only work for one company. I mean, it's just restriction after restriction. What does this mean for Uber?
It's problematic for Uber. I think the biggest concern, I would say, would be the driving for more than one company, because right now Uber is not number one in China. You know, they are a distant second to Didi Kuaidi, which is by far the dominant company there. And so, if you're saying the drivers can only drive for one place, that's a real problem. I think some of the other restrictions,
even drivers here, right? Whenever you talk to, I mean, they're all driving for different companies. They sometimes have a private company. But, then when it suits them, they join Uber.
I mean, we were talking about earlier spending, $1 to make 20 cents. Uber is spending tons and tons of money to acquire drivers in China, and it's difficult for them to do that. If they have to spend money and drivers can only drive for them, that's going to really hurt.
I think it's a waste of money on Uber's part, because it is clear now, more and more, I think, that the Chinese government cannot allow capitalist innovation and capitalist productivity to flourish in the country, because they want control.
Right, and they would prefer its own companies.
You read these lists of what they say. You have to place your servers in China. You have to share data with local transportation authorities. You have to register your cars. Foreign companies must obtain a license to carry out telecommunications business and are subject to national security checks. Who can do business in an environment like this? It's sort of
like, here's 30 fiery hoops. Right. Go ahead, Uber, jump through it. But it has raised more than $50 billion. I mean, if this doesn't go well and somehow hampers their plans, I don't know how much they were counting on this working. This is a pretty big piece of the puzzle.
It's a big piece of the puzzle. They are looking to this as their second largest market after the United States. Their whole business is built on the fact that they can, they're not subject to the regulations that traditional taxis are, and that they're lower cost. Well, China is attempting to add costs and regulations, so that could really put a wrench in their plans. Right.
So speaking of cars, I guess with your next car, I don't know, David, if you're a car man, but you can get a drone to go with it.
I love it. Have you ever driven? You probably haven't driven a big truck, either one. Maybe you have, but if you ever find yourself behind the wheel, we take it all as a collective
invitation, by the way.
The best thing about driving a big truck, besides the power, is the fact that you look over all the cars, and if there's a traffic jam, you can see where it starts. You can see if you're going to be stuck there for hours, if you should try another route. This gives regular drivers
I want to know if we're going to see like road rage between my drone and your drone.
But you can see way above to where the traffic jam is. I love this idea.
I kind of like the idea. I mean, what happens when I decide to scramble your drone and put it in a different space and show you the other lane?
It may not be practical, but I like the idea.
Car operated by a drone. What's the point of owning a sports car if you can't drive it yourself? I want to drive that fast thing myself.
Yeah, and it should have, be like the Batmobile, right? That's really what we're looking for if we're going to splash out.
Maybe that's why I like it. I always like the Batmobile. The idea of a Bat really having one is great.
You just talked to Stanley. You're in Marvel land.
I am.
Anyway, thank you very much, Tech Panel. Great to have your insights.